All right. So the two-step inequalities worksheet. Go ahead and put your name on it. Pencil. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do the odds together, leaving you just the evens to do for your homework tonight. Oh my gosh, seriously? Go ahead and start number one. Hello? Hey. All right, thank you. Bye. And after class, they said you can go down to the office and try that. All right, number one, what's our cousin Eddie term? 2. Okay, so I'm going to put a -2 on both sides. 0 and -2 makes -2. Yeah, exactly. 0 minus 2 is just -2. There's the first step, done. Second step, again, I'm not sure what the graph is doing right in the middle of our work, but whatever. Second step, what's the opposite of dividing by 3? Do you flip the sign when you multiply by a positive? Nope. So n is going to be greater than, and someone tell me what -2 times 3 is. -6. That means we want an open circle around -6, and is n bigger or smaller? Bigger, shade to the right. Hey, we got one done already. Okay, now moving on to 3. Ashlyn, for number 3, can you tell me what the cousin Eddie term is? So what we are going to put a, good job. Ashlyn was 5 minus 5. So I got x over 1 is now greater than 0. By the way, on both of these problems, we've been able to get rid of the cousin Eddie term first because they're not big fat fractions. Big fat fraction, you have to clear it first because the cousin Eddie term's on top of a fraction. Here, the constant term is not on top of a fraction, so I'm able to get rid of it right away. Rayleigh, what's the opposite of dividing by 1? Rayleigh, what happens when you multiply by 1? What's a number times 1? Just that number. What happens when you times by 0? So for 2 reasons, this is going to stay as, what's 0 times 1?
Oh,
0. There you go. So x is greater than 0. And when we times by a positive 1, we don't flip the sign. What do you guys think? Open or closed circle? Open, is x bigger or smaller? Shade to the right. Number 5. Number 5, -2r minus 2 is less than or equal to 4. Maddie Cheeseman, what's our cousin Eddie term? And it's this one right here, correct? Yeah, because there's 2 -2s. How do I get rid of that -2? Good. I'm going to write it real tiny. Real tiny. Maddie, what's 4 plus 2? 6. So -2r is less than or equal to 6. Step 1 is done. Step 2. Thomas, what's the opposite of multiplying by -2? Dividing by -2. Thomas, do I have to flip the sign when I'm dividing by a negative? Oh, I don't. Really? I think you should know this. You just took a quiz over it yesterday. Okay. Let's ask somebody else. Maddie, do I have to flip the sign when I'm dividing by a negative? I absolutely do. Anytime you're multiplying or dividing by a negative, you have to flip the sign. So this is one that I have to flip on. Thomas, what is 6 divided by -2? There we go. So we're still going to put a closed circle around the -3, but since we had to flip the sign, that means r is now bigger or smaller? Bigger, greater. So yeah, I'm shading to the right. Number 7. Parker, what's our cousin Eddie term? Okay, so put a -3 on both sides. Parker, what's 4 minus 3? 1. So at b divided by 9 is less than 1. Hannah, what's the opposite of dividing by 9? Good. And Hannah, what's 1 times 9? 9. Do I have to flip the sign if I'm multiplying by +9? No. So Thomas, here the difference here is that I'm multiplying by a positive 9. So I don't flip. Anytime I'm multiplying divided by a negative number, however, I would flip. So I'm going to leave the sign just as it was. And open circle around 9 is B bigger or smaller? Smaller than 9, so shade to the left. Hey, we're halfway of being halfway done. I guess that means we're a fourth of the way. Number 9 on the backside. Ella, what's the cousin Eddie term here? Okay, so we're going to put A. Good. Those are going to join forces to make what, Ella? Negative 84. Nice job. Yeah, oftentimes we'll go to war, and then there's the occasional problem that we join forces because they have the same signs. So negative 84, and then Maddie Yentes, what am I going to do to get rid of the negative 7 there?
So you're going to divide by negative 7.
Okay, and does that mean anything special has to happen? You hear that? We are going to have to flip the sign, right? Because I'm dividing by a negative. So V is now going to be less than or equal to, and then Maddie, what's negative 84 divided by negative 7? It is 12. This would be one that unless I know my 7's up that far, which Maddie does, and you might as well, you could use a calculator on, but it's not one where I would type in negative 84 and then divide by negative 7, because you should know that 2 negatives make a positive, so you just have to type in 84 divided by 7. Okay. Open or close circle? Closed. Is V bigger than 12 or smaller than 12? Smaller? Shade left. Number 11. Ooh, a big fat fraction. So this overrides everything we were going to do, right? We were going to get rid of the cousin Eddie term first and then multiply and divide to break the coefficient bond. We cannot do that when there's a big fat fraction because the number I want to get rid of, which is the 1, is over the fraction now, unlike all the other problems in which it was not over the fraction. So I do have to clear the fraction first. To clear a big fat fraction, multiply both sides by the bottom number of that fraction. Which is what, Aiden? The bottom number of that fraction. 2 times by 2 times by 2. Do I have to flip the sign when multiplying by a positive 2? No, but if it were a negative 2, I would. So keep that in mind. The 2's on the right side will cancel out. And so please don't take the 2 times the A or the 1. It just cancels out. It's A plus 1. And then Aiden, what's 4 times 2? 8. Now I'm left with this nicer equation. Branson, what's the cousin Eddie term? Branson, what's 8 minus 1? If the variable is on the right side, leave it on the right side. There's no good that happens if you flip it. Like nothing special happens. Like that's not going to help me graph it. I'll accept it. It's just extra work. And if you do it wrong, you get it wrong. So make sure you have the correct answer. And I would just leave it the way it was. Open or closed circle around 7. Open is A bigger or small? Smaller, shade to left. The only time I'd have to flip it around like that, I haven't seen big ideas do this, but if they had the A already written for you first, you would have to rearrange it. But so far, I believe on big ideas, they've just given you a box and you have to type the whole thing in, right? Because they would accept it both ways. Okay. Number 13. Number 13, 60 is greater than 5 minus 5n. Back to you, Ashlyn. What's our cousin Eddie term? That the one in the middle, right? The constant. So I put a minus 5, and Ashlyn, what's 60 minus 5? 55. Step 1 is done. Make sure when you copy it down, though, it's a negative 5n. So remember, you should be able to tell if you're going to flip the sign or not before you even start the problem. If there's a negative or a minus sign with your variable term. In this case, you can tell right away, this is a negative 5n. I'm going to have to flip it. And if you couldn't tell then, you can certainly tell now. Because the opposite of multiplying by negative 5 is dividing by negative 5, and we are going to have to flip the sign. Leave the n on the other side, though. Otherwise, flipping the sign just canceled out. So leave n on the right. And then 55 divided by negative 5 is negative 11. There we go. So where would I find negative 11 at on this number line, Maddie?
Between the negative 10 and negative 12.
Yes, so open circle there. It'd be really easy to put the open circle here because normally on the positive side, 11 is to the right side of 10, but on the negative side, negative 11 is to the left side of negative 10 because it's opposite. It's smaller, so it's on the left. Is n bigger or smaller? Bigger, shade to the right. And number 15, is this a big fat fraction? No, it's not. So I can get rid of my cousin Eddie term. Rayleigh, what is the cousin Eddie term? I do want to put a negative 5. Rayleigh, 6 and negative 5 makes positive 1. Positive 1. Yeah, just think of it like 6 minus 5. Positive army wins that one. And then I got P over 20, which Maddie Cheeseman, P over 20 means P divided by 20. So we're going to do what to get rid of the 20? Good. Maddie, do I flip the sign if I'm multiplying by a positive 20? No. Maddie, what is 1 times 20? Yeah. Open or close circle? Close that circle. Is P bigger or smaller? Bigger. Shade to the right. All right, we are now a full way of being halfway done. So a full half. You have the evens to do. And so since I'm not going to be here tomorrow, and Mrs. Myers is going to be, and as I told you, she's going to give you the period to work. And we're going to start off at least working individually. You want to make sure that this is ready to turn in tomorrow. And if you don't have it done when you come into class, get it done so you can turn it to the tray. Then, if you don't finish the rest of the evens by tomorrow, you could work on that. The chapter 4 review is technically what you should be working on if you have everything done. Some of you will come into class tomorrow with everything done. And if you don't, get it finished first in that order. Okay, prioritize what has to be turned in first. Sure. We got time, we can look at one.